Good afternoon, Car MBS. I want to thank you for joining our power lunch today. Is everybody having a good day at the conference so far? Great to hear. We're going to begin to do our introductions. Please continue to enjoy your meal. We're going to start our panel discussion in just a few minutes. I want to take some time to welcome you. My name is Bill Newman. I'm Industry Executive Advisor at SAP for Automotive. We were kind of comparing notes some at the table, and I think most of us have been in and around the room here for many, many years, coming up here to beautiful Traverse City. We're really excited to see all of you here. It's an exciting time to be in the automotive industry, an exciting time to be in Michigan. Hopefully you heard some remarks from Governor Whitmer this morning. We are very, very fortunate to have a great relationship with the Center of Automotive Research. Our relationship goes back several years and individually decades before then. We felt so strongly about our relationship with the Center of Automotive Research that about 3 years ago, we invested in a multi-year relationship, SAP did, as affiliate sponsors. We're delighted to work with them as business partners, not just in our industry, but now extending into other industries like tech, like energy. And so we're just, again, delighted that you're here joining us this week. I'm also excited to be up here for the 4th year in a row with our partners from Deloitte. Deloitte is one of our premier business partners in the technology space, and it's just been great to work with them across our customer base and as well be able to provide to you some of their top-of-mind insights as we kind of journey through this industry and associated industries together. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce our panelists today. And I'm going to start right to left from your screen with my partner in crime, Kevin Foster, who is the North America leader for Deloitte in the SAP automotive practice, focused on innovation in the automotive industry globally, solving problems to help clients recover and thrive in today's disruptive automotive market. Kevin is a Detroit boy, but I think we see most of each other at our customers and here at places like Car MBS. So please welcome up Kevin Foster. Our next speaker joining us today is Angela Timon, is the Director of Procurement for DTNA for the Aftermarket and Specialty Vehicle Groups. She started her career at DTNA in 2007. Since that time, has held increasing roles of responsibility, joining the aftermarket purchasing team as an operational buyer, then a strategic buyer. In 2014, she assumed the role of manager for aftermarket purchasing for interior-exterior cab and major components. In 2019, Angela took over managing the newly formed e-mobility purchasing group, responsible for e-core purchasing of components for all of North America. The team has been responsible for supporting purchasing relevant activities for the launch of the Gen 1 Julie bus and the MT50E walk-in van, as well as the Gen Z e-Cascadia. And if you haven't seen that vehicle, you really need to see that vehicle. It's a very impressive structure. Angela attended the University of Oregon. Go Ducks, Big Ten? No, just the big now, okay? Just the big. And Portland State, and has a bachelor's degree in social science as well as an MBA in addition to her leadership roles. Angela is very active in the DTNA EBRG community, including recognition for her past leadership with the DTNA Women's Interactive Network. Please welcome Angela Timon. And finally, we're going to bring up Daniel Schumacher to the stage. Daniel is Vice President for IT of Toyota Material Handling North America. He has over 25 years of experience and is a strategic, engaging, and dynamic technology leader with extensive experience creating and sustaining transformational business value and outcomes throughout the digital and enterprise technology platforms. Toyota Material Handling North America is the industry leader in forklift sales. So he can talk to you about the Tundra and the 4Runner, but that's really not his product segment. That's a Toyota Motor's a different part of the group. In any event, basically there's two brands, Toyota Material Handling and the Raymond Corporation. 1 in 3, wrap your head around this, 1 in 3 forklifts sold in North America is either a Toyota or a Raymond product, with an annual revenue of over $4 billion. In his spare time, Daniel enjoys golfing some of America's most beautiful courses and may have golfed on Monday. Please welcome Daniel Schumacher. Okay, so I'm going to switch technology. Sound check? Great. And for those of you in the audience, we will hopefully have time for Q&A at the end of our prepared discussion. You can use the Whova app to submit a question, and I'll go ahead and moderate them, and you can upvote them, downvote them, do whatever you need to do there. So for sure, that will be the way to go. And you know, last year we were here and we talked about the electrification of light passenger vehicles. And Kevin and I in particular and the rest of the team, we were talking, you know, there's a story to be told around commercial vehicles and heavy equipment. And for those of you familiar with the space, there's some regulatory aspects. We will probably not be able to go into so much of that today. But I did do a poll just to kind of gauge the temperature of the audience. And while most of you think that, you know, some majority electrification in this space will happen, most of you kind of see it outbound, kind of towards 2035, 2040. So I think that's interesting to kind of note, and I think we've heard today that this is really going to be a journey, right? Regardless of what segment you're on. So for those of you who participated in the poll prior to the lunch, thank you for doing so. Okay, so let's just bear with me as we jump into it here. So the first question we're going to have is kind of around that topic, and it's more about adoption and impact, because I think what we want to dive into is the story behind the headlines and perhaps of what you've seen and what, you know, companies in this space are actually doing about it. So for the first question, I'll just set this up. The International Energy Agency recently published its 2024 EV Global Outlook, and in that study, it stated, "We expect electric truck sales to continue to increase thanks to strong and ambitious policies such as the European Union's CO2 standards, which target a 90% CO2 emission reduction by 2040. There's that day again. In the United States, the newly adopted heavy-duty emissions regulated is expected to result in zero-emission vehicles, or ZEV, sales of up to 60% by 2032 in different segments. So, Angela, we're going to go to you first. Daimler Truck, we saw your videos, very impressive, has several brands across multi-truck class segments and buses that have particularly led this transition in EV types. So from your perspective, what does the portfolio look like in 5 to 10 years?
Sure. First, thanks for having me. So I would say being part of a global organization like we are, our aspirations are global. And so our goal is by 2039 that for Europe, North America, and Asia, we will be 100% zero emission vehicles. Obviously, that's a very lofty goal, and it's driven a lot by adoption. I would say when you look at our numbers right now, we are building trucks, we're ready to sell trucks, but as I'm sure we'll talk about, the infrastructure has been challenging to get buy-in from the big picture. But as you mentioned earlier, we have four big vehicles that are electrified right now. We have our e-Cascadia, we have our walk-in van, we have our Jouley bus, and then we also have an M2 box truck. So definitely exploring all facets of the heavy-duty industry.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we saw maybe over the last couple of years was the idea of fit to purpose, right? In coming up with that and engineering to a specific purpose with your product lines. Yeah. Daniel, particularly for the Toyota Material Handling brand Raymond, electrification has been a part of the business model for several years now. How do policies and market demand impact the electrification portfolio for your organization in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, thank you, Bill. And I forgot to include our video, so I'm going to give you a little bit more of a background on Toyota Material Handling in North America. You can find it on YouTube. That way our PR folks will be pleased that I plugged that. So Toyota Material Handling North America consists of two brands. Clearly one you recognize as Toyota. The second you may not recognize as much. It's the Raymond Corporation. Raymond Corporation has been around for over 100 years. One of their most noteworthy things is they're the George Raymond actually invented the wooden pallet. So just a fun fact for your next cocktail party. We manufacture most of our products at our factories in Columbus, Indiana, Muscatine, Iowa, and Greene, New York. And as Bill mentioned, kind of a fun fact is we are 38% of the North America material handling market just with our brand. I'm a car guy, have been my entire life. And when I first came to Toyota and heard those market share numbers, it just blew me away. Back specifically to your question, electrification in our industry is nothing new. I think we saw this morning, it's at 8% in the automotive industry. North American material handling is already over 60% electrified. And you know, as we've been in this market for quite some time. Our estimation is that by the year 2030, we will be 80% electrified. So I know, you know, some of the panelists have talked about some of the negative press about EV adoption and whatnot. You know, we're a relatively quiet industry, but really making very strong waves and pushing forward with electrification. A lot of this is really being driven by CARB. So starting in 2026, we will no longer be able to sell Class 4 and Class 5 large spark ignition forklifts into the California market. So as you can imagine, this is something, you know, that and as well as the fact that there are 17 other states that are likely going to adopt that shortly after the CARB goes into effect. It's really been motivating our industry to move faster and doing this for several years. 2021 was a really big year for us. We launched 22 new electric forklifts.
22 new models.
22 new models in 1 year.
Wow.
Just hard to wrap your head around some of these details. And then last but not least, we've been making some significant investments in the future of electrification, no different than what you're hearing about in the automotive industry. So a few months ago, we announced that we're launching a new energy storage solutions factory in upstate New York. And we also announced that we're investing $100 million building a new factory in Columbus, Indiana that will produce solely electric forklift and material handling products.
Yeah, that's a great story. And for those of you not familiar with the material handling space, that really is, you're right, you're kind of like quiet leaders in that space. So I think it's really important for us to understand that it's happening, right? And even though, and I think for us in light passenger who also work in that space, we're not the first, right? We're just finding the application for our segment. Kevin, I'm going to come to you from an operating model perspective and a tax position impact. From a Deloitte perspective, how do you see shifting electrified portfolios contributing or inhibiting the time and speed to market for manufacturers and their customers?
So what we've seen across the industry, especially as folks have been moving to BEV or electrification, is really around taking a look at the skill sets in terms of what's required to develop those products. And we've seen an increased investment in terms of innovation and how do we come up with the new products such as the 22 launch there, and also the new processes in place that require possibly new skill sets for workers, new plants to deploy those, or flexibility on your current lines in terms of how do you produce both your traditional vehicles as well as your electrified vehicles under the same plant. So from organization's perspective, it's really kind of top down, taking a look at, do we have the skill sets to complete? If not, doing that analysis around what we need to do in order to go and get that. And we've seen a lot of partnerships in the industry as well around trying to get the skill sets that predominantly might not have sat with the OEMs, but could have sat with suppliers such as battery producers, et cetera. So, you know, between partnerships and alliance, that's how I see the industry bridging the gap currently while they're taking a look in terms of how do they build those in-house capabilities.
Let's go a little deeper. Let's double click on that, because the Center of Automotive Research published a report earlier this year, Battery and Industry Training and Needs Assessment. And in this report, it identified several skills gap as it relates to battery production and eventual electrification into ZEVs. And this report has several findings, but I thought that this particular statement summarized the tenor. Contending with workforce challenges for the battery industry involves addressing critical skills gaps among current employees and incoming job applicants. Results from the study revealed that the greatest industry-wide skill gaps in electrochemistry, battery chemistry, and battery management systems, production and system design, manufacturing, and safety. And that's a pretty broad swath. So, Kev, I'm going to come back to you. Based on your work with the variety of ZEV manufacturers, how integrated are the operating models and processes for battery development to vehicle production, and how might these skill gaps impact that value chain?
Yep, absolutely. And so again, we talked about the alliances and partnerships, right? But when we take a look at, what OEMs are starting to take a look at, as well as vertical integration in controlling the whole supply chain, all the way from even the mining of the core components or the high valued commodities it's required for battery manufacturing, and controlling that supply chain all the way up through the cell, module, and pack production to be then put in vehicles. So as we all seen in 2020, where we had chip issues, et cetera, it's really around how do we control and take risk out of our supply chains to make sure that we have the ability to continue producing and selling the vehicles that's required in the market.
Daniel, I think I'm going to go to you. So given the recent announcements on battery development, and I think you mentioned ESS specifically, for electrification, how is your organization addressing these potential skills needs? And as the company expands its verticalization into battery operations, how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, it's really a two-pronged approach. The first of that is developing training for your existing workforce. And that's workforce throughout the entire value chain, right? So that's people at our corporate facilities, but it's also people at our dealers and our field service technicians. They're no longer just going out to a customer and only having to work on an internal combustion truck. There might be mixed fleets where they're going to have to do or expected to do maintenance and repairs on IC and electric vehicles at the same time. So developing and delivering that training is really significant. The second prong is really recruiting and also retention that goes along with that. It's getting the right talent and getting them excited about our industry, right? We're a relatively quiet industry compared to the automotive industry, but going through all the same things that you all are. So it's really about bringing in the right people, continue to make investments in the future that will attract new talent to come into the organizations and into the industry, and then also making sure that it's a great place to work so they stick around.
Yeah, for sure. And Angela, DTNA and Thomas Built buses have a long history in partner integration on the topic of battery technology. From your perspective, how has the Daimler Ready approach with its key technology suppliers address ecosystem skills challenges across battery and vehicle domains?
I would echo what Daniel and Kevin have both said. I think we train our dealer network. We train, our internal folks to be able to manage this. I think we've been very successful with the Thomas Built bus application. The Julie bus seems to be the application that's working the best, right? I mean, you can take it to take the kids around during the day, and then you park it in the barn, and then you take it out again later, and then you park it again all night. So it works really well. So I think we've got the training piece, we've got the application piece. The other thing I would say is the who we're partnering with piece. So Daimler, again, we're a large organization, so we have opportunities to buy batteries in different ways. So we have a supplier partner on the TBB and FCCC side. We have internal vertical integration happening on the truck side, and we continue to enter into joint ventures with other folks that make this make sense. Because we heard earlier, when you're looking at the materials needed to build these batteries, I mean, those are very limited, right, in scope. The other thing we do that's a little bit different is we have remanufacturing facilities all over North America, and we're investigating remanufacturing these batteries. So taking those core components and how can we rebuild those? I mean, they're $80,000 batteries, right? So how are you rebuilding those and taking the most value out of them? So I think we have a multi-pronged approach that's really serving us well.
I think it's been said before that remanufacturing was the first sustainability process.
Yes. It's pretty amazing to see what we're doing. I mean, when we talk about chips, I'm not sure if folks know this, but during the crisis, we were remanufacturing. We were taking the core of the chips and building new CPCs for our new vehicles to help us get through the crisis. So there's a lot of amazing things happening at our different remanufacturing locations.
That's fantastic. Just a reminder to the audience, if you have a question, please go to the Whova app. I see a few questions coming in, and time permitting, we'll get to most of your questions today. So I'm going to go to our third and final prepared question, and this speaks to the question of infrastructure. A McKinsey study suggests that hydrogen offers a break-even to diesel and vehicle batteries, even surpassing the fuel cost per mile by as early as 2025. Seems a little aggressive, but that's what McKinsey says. Being only 1 year away, how would you consider an aggregated small fleet of Class 8 vehicles? The study considered an aggregated small fleet of Class 8 vehicles. So Daniel, I'm going to come to you first. As it relates to hydrogen and the other fuel cell gases, how does the propulsion landscape change, if any, over the next several years in the heavy equipment space? And what are the infrastructure hurdles that you feel must be overcome?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Well, so, as a Toyota company, we're constantly experimenting with new technologies, right? Kaizen is just built into our DNA. So we're looking at many different technologies. You mentioned other alternative fuels. We've had liquid propane gas trucks that are running for several years now. So another area where it's not uncommon to see those out and about. You probably see one or two of them every day. We've had those out there for years. When it comes to the fuel cell technology, the infrastructure changes and the hurdles to overcome are very significant. There are very few companies in the United States that are providing hydrogen fuel cells to the material handling market. They do exist. If you do go to their websites, you will see images of our forklifts in their materials, but it's very few and far between. You think about the lift of going from internal combustion to electric, the lift going from either of those to hydrogen fuel cells is just radically different from a cost and level of effort point of view. I did have a very cool opportunity a few months ago. I was visiting our Takahama plant in Japan, where they actually have a fleet of fuel cell forklifts rolling around, and we actually got to meet Mr. Hydrogen, who maintains all those. So we've seen it. It's real. It's very cool. It's kind of wild when you see them just put the little hose onto it and some water trickles out, and that's all of the emissions. So certainly the potential is there, but the cost and the hurdle to overcome is just very significant right now.
Yeah. Angela, same question to you as it relates to commercial transportation vehicles. What are the infrastructure hurdles that must be overcome in that segment?
Yeah, I think long term, we do see hydrogen as being probably the most positive opportunity for long haul, for sure. But I think to Daniel's point, saying by 2025 it will be cost competitive, I have a hard time understanding that. We still see it as very, very expensive. We also wonder how the subsidies and government grants will kind of translate to that technology, because it's not necessarily one for one, as we've seen so far with ZEV. So I think those are the things that really are driving that, as well as the infrastructure conversation, which covers all of this related to EV right now.
Yeah, we talked yesterday in session about the pendulum swinging, right? So we'll maybe have a little bit more clarity at the end of the year, maybe not, we'll see. Kevin, over to you. If we look at the light pickup and other similar vehicles, in your mind, what are the hurdles for affordable hydrogen vehicle for the consumer market? Are they too high to overcome in the next 10 years or so? What are your thoughts on that?
So what I'd say is I think there's going to continue to be multiple investments in innovation in terms of how we can power our vehicles while still meeting our sustainability requirements. As we continue to make technological advancements daily in terms of where that could take us, right? Realistically, I think we still have the problem of infrastructure, as we said. Cost is always going to be a problem in terms of how can we manufacture something that's still profitable for the business to continue. But then also, how do we leverage tax credits, right, and maximize the use of the credits that the government's giving to fund our R&D to help that profitability, right? So, and then ultimately it leads to, adoption as well, right? So again, we need to make our customers feel confident in terms of where they can leverage those alternative fuel methods and still get to their day-to-day, right? So again, it's kind of that whole package in terms of, how do you continue innovating and give flexibility in your business while keeping a high focus on cost to make sure that you're maintaining profitability.
Great. Thank you for that. We're gonna step into our Q&A section here. I'm gonna throw a question. We haven't said the two letters that have been the buzz over the most year, and that's AI. So I'm gonna throw the AI question to Kevin. and then I'll have a look at some of your questions for the panel in the last few minutes we have remaining. So, Kevin, artificial intelligence, AI, has been at the forefront of a lot of activity over the past year. How does business AI used to run business operations and vehicle AI used to autonomize vehicle processes come together? And do you see a path forward, or is it largely a hype curve phenomena?
So what I'd say is AI is everywhere. It's going to change everything that we do, change everything in terms of how we run our businesses, et cetera. And so when we look at multiple different companies, they're in different places as part of their AI journey, right? Some just have released, Copilot as part of, internal help for their workforce, right? So we have other companies who are, working to have external facing applications with come with other challenges, such as this AI is generating, explanations based on your behalf, which could come with legal ramifications, right? So I think we're still at the infancy in terms of how we use it. And what's really important is, what is your current AI strategy in terms of what you have for both in-facing AI and external-facing AI, and then ultimately how we leverage that for things like autonomous vehicles and that for driving. So what I'd say is, I don't think it's all hype per se, right? Because we have some very good use cases that have showed great value for organizations that are real, right? But I think it's still in its infancy in terms of how do we structure that and put the guardrails that you need across to make sure that it's not proposing too much of a risk to an organization if externally focused.
Thank you. Couple of questions from the audience specific to Class 8 trucks, so I'm looking at you, Angela. One was basically the viability of a hybrid solution, and another was to kind of double click on the future of hydrogen in commercial vehicles, and there was a feigned reference, not so feigned reference, to the Tesla Class 8 BEV truck. So just for context.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think hybrid is also, part of the portfolio exploration, I would say. We don't know yet what we don't know and what customers will adopt. I think, again, driving that infrastructure conversation will lead us down different paths, I would imagine. We've recently partnered with Power Electronics. They're a charging company out of Spain. They also are working with our colleagues in Europe too. But I think really building that charging infrastructure has been key to us. We sit in Portland, so it's a little bit different than, throughout parts of the Midwest. So I think, again, seeing how those things are adopted will help drive the discussion about, is hybrid the answer? Is hydrogen the answer? What is the answer? Hydrogen, like I said, we do think long term for a long haul application, that is the way to go. But I would say that, again, with cost the way it is, we just haven't explored that as much. The other thing I would say is that we still feel like there is a life for ICE as well. We're just trying to work on making it cleaner and better, because when you think about that application and how long it's lived and how long it'll live in the aftermarket, I'm responsible for the aftermarket organization at DT&A. There's always going to be the demand for it, especially when you're talking about 20 or 25 years post-production, which our aftermarket customers are looking for solutions for. So we're just kind of adding more to the market, I think, and to what we need to offer, for sure.
Thank you. Daniel, I'm gonna pivot to you. There were a couple of questions regarding sustainability and the impact around kind of that move to EV, but also I think kind of stepping back more broadly in terms of the business purpose, for example. I know Toyota's done many public statements around sustainability goals and kind of their holistic approach. Maybe you can share with the audience your perspective from the material handling organization, kind of what that means to you as you're expanding your operations, particularly looking at this latest investment on EV battery technology.
Yeah, so at Toyota, one of our key focuses is we solve our customers' problems and we help them carry the load. And we mean that, somewhat figuratively, but also very much literally, right? So this is not just a Toyota sustainability opportunity, right? These are the material handling outfits that are out there. Pretty much every business out there relies on material handling equipment at some point in time. So it's about how do we make sure we're doing the right thing as a corporate citizen, but then also, the more that we can get electrified products into our customer environments, it also helps them reduce emissions in their world as well. So, yes, it's definitely about meeting some of the CARB requirements and other state requirements that are coming out for ourselves, but it's really also helping our customers carry the load and just getting that across the broader industry.
Yeah, that certainly makes a lot of sense. Kind of extending on that conversation, another question asks, and I think this touched on some of your prepared remarks, Daniel, what lessons can be learned from electrification of material handling that could be applied to trucking, and I think mostly for this audience, particularly light-duty vehicles?
Oh, that's a
What
tricky
can
one.
we learn from each other?
I was just gonna say, and hopefully this does not mean you rate all of our engineers in Columbus and Green, but I think there very much are direct parallels. Right now, where our vehicles live, maybe in different environments, but I think the parallels between those environments and industries is direct. Most people don't spend a lot of time thinking about material handling or studying it, but maybe there are opportunities there to look at how some of those things evolved in our industry, learn from it, and apply some of those same practices. We were just talking before we got on stage, even between Daimler and ourselves, we probably have a lot of customers in common, but yet we're not having those conversations as organizations. So I think there's opportunities probably just to do more open collaboration and sharing that success that will really, really drive adoption and success for everybody.
Kevin, I'm going to shift over to you. You're kind of our token cross-segment person here, so kind of coming back around to the consumer passenger vehicles as well. How do we enable the homeowner with charging? And do you see that these applications, maybe one-to-many applications, can be extended to commercial customers as well, commercial vehicle customers as well? I'm thinking fleets, like small fleets.
Yeah, and again, most of the OEMs now are taking a look in terms of what's their charging capabilities and charging services, right? So, there's multiple ways to charge the vehicle, whether it be at your home, while it's parked somewhere via mobile charging station, et cetera, or plugs wherever you're traveling to, right? So there's multiple aspects within the journey of where the vehicle is going to be placed in terms of how we can charge that vehicle. And multiple companies are coming out with solutions for the passenger vehicles in terms of to overcome that fear for range anxiety, shall we say, right? So getting that up to speed and at a cost in which the users are willing to adopt. Now that's a different story as part of that as we look at the total cost of ownership for vehicles, right?
Yeah, I think that gets really interesting into kind of extending that whole value chain. And we've seen customers also start to get into maybe stepping into the downstream energy space as well. So where does that go? And again, kind of blending of all of you who are with us, between vehicle, tech, energy, and other segments gets very, very interesting. I'm not sure who wants this. Maybe I'll go to you, Angela, just from your procurement background, but do you see a conversation around the use of composite resins and hydrogen storage systems? Is there talk in the engineering community? I know this is a bit of a throw, but I at least want to ask the question. Is that a punt?
I don't know the answer to that question. I think, like everything, we're exploring all the alternatives that there are everywhere. So things that you might hear that you think are crazy and where did that come from? I'm sure that is being talked about somewhere.
Right. Daniel, I'm going to come to you on this one. There's kind of a specific question back to skills, but this one is more focused on how can students and universities prepare for the new future to stand out from other candidates in the job market. And I'll remind our panelists and the audiences that we have a really great student program here today. Are there any students? Somebody must be a student in the audience. Show of hands from students. First of all, thank you all for being here. Let's give these students a round of applause. These are our leaders of tomorrow, so I think it's just a wonderful program. Maybe we can go to you, Daniel, and then we can just walk down the rest of the panel.
Yeah, I appreciate you all being here. My advice would be find internship opportunities or co-op opportunities where you get real hands-on work. When I think back to my internships as an accounting student in the 90s, it was literally printing out reports and walking them around to executives, which that was just what we did in those days. But I think finding opportunities to really get hands-on, to drive actual success, participate in real projects, I think will really differentiate you when you come to the next, end of your time at school and we're all competing to try to hire you.
I would add to that, I think don't limit yourself to just the engineering topic. Look at the end to end of this life cycle, right? It starts with designing the part and then, the engineering part and then the sourcing part and then the supply chain and then making sure for the aftermarket solution and then again, the remanufacturing part. I mean, there's so many levels to this, the life of what we're doing here. I would definitely say don't box yourself into just the engineering conversation.
Yeah, so absolutely. And then the thing I would add as well, we had the opportunity to meet 2 students yesterday, is being in conferences like this is the networking opportunities. There's so many people in the industry in terms of who you have an opportunity to meet with, right? With a lot of problems to solve, right? So just listen, find out what those problems are. It sparks curiosity, go out, learn, and then leverage your network to say how you can solve their problems, which makes you a very good candidate.
I'll add a couple of plugs here too. So I've also been part of the Detroit Economic Club in the past. So if you're in the downstate area, being part of that student organization or young leader organization is a fantastic program for development and mentorship. For those of you who have a technology background, SAP has a very vibrant University Alliance program. So schools in the area like Wayne State, Central Michigan, Grand Valley, Michigan State, they all offer certificate programs as a part of their course curricula in their business schools. So, I mean, I think at Grand Valley several years ago, their placement rate was 120% because companies were actually hiring juniors. So it's really an incredible opportunity. Just be on the lookout for those opportunities and, ask a lot of questions. And speaking of questions, I think I've got a few very technical questions, but I think that we're just kind of running into that space where I think it's kind of a natural pause in our Q&A. For the audience, what I'd like to do is, again, thank you for your time. If you'd like to continue the automotive conversation, we do have 2 upcoming events. And you'll also receive this deck as a part of your leave behind. So we are inviting automotive and related industry customers to join us for an event September 12th in Detroit. My colleague Rich Wilkins is here. Raise your hand, Rich. Can provide you information on that. He's our event captain for that. Our Customer Innovation Day. And then we're actually going to run down to Austin at the end of September. Hopefully it's not 128 degrees down there. I think we hit 103 last year. But we're going to be with the Move America event, and we have several panels. Rich and I will be there along with some of our colleagues. We'd enjoy seeing you there. And also as a part of this leave behind, you'll also see a number of SAP and Deloitte white papers and additional information, as well as in the appendix, the studies and links to the studies that we mentioned in our panel discussion today. So with that, I want to thank all of you for attending. I want to thank Daniel Schumacher from Toyota Material Handling, Angela Timon from Daimler Truck, Kevin Foster from Deloitte. My name is Bill Newman with SAP. Thank you very much for attending today and have a great conference. Thank you.